Peace, love, liberty, radio.
And the walls come crashing down as the war at home reaches your town. You have no choice, it's safe and clean. We all submit to the war machine.
You know what day today is? Today is Wednesday, which means it's the day that I answer your questions. And actually, a couple of the questions that I'm answering this week are questions that I had asked myself, partly because they're questions that I've been thinking about a lot recently, and partly because I've mentioned them several times on the show and did say that at some point I would wind up answering the questions. Now, I spent a good portion of an episode, I think last week, answering one of these questions, and it's sort of a two-part sort of thing. So it's part one of another question, and it's actually one of three questions that on the School of Greatness podcast, the host, Lewis Howes, always asks all of his guests. And the three questions are, what are you grateful for? What is your definition of greatness? And the one that really interests me the most, the one that I love hearing everybody's answers to, is sort of a longer question. But the question is, suppose that today is your final day on Earth. Everything you've ever created has been wiped away. Every book you've ever written, every podcast you've ever recorded, every, fill in the blank, everything that you have ever created is gone. But your friends and family are there with you, and you're given a sheet of paper and told that you can write down three truths, three things that you know to be true about life. What do you write down? So those three questions I will wind up answering. And again, I answered the what are you grateful for question, I believe it was last Wednesday when I answered that one. And so I'm not necessarily going to rehash the answer to that, but just know that I did answer that question. Now let me jump into the what is your definition of greatness? And this is another, again, it's one of these questions that it interests me and it intrigues me, and I love hearing other people's answers to this question because everybody defines greatness differently. Some people will define greatness as being successful. And then the question is, how do you define success? And I would actually wind up that's how I will answer the question, is I will define greatness as being successful in life. And then the question is, how do you define success? And success is not always about money. It's not always about winning. Success, in my mind, is about always giving your best at whatever you attempt to do. And yes, I know that there's the saying of, there is no try, there is only do. Try or try not, there is only do. And while that sounds good, it's very fortune cookie-y, if that makes any sense, to where it's something that, it looks good on a fortune cookie, but in practicality, no, there are some things that you can only try to do. So let me give an example. Asking out the cute girl. Yes, certainly, there's the, you're either asking or you're not asking. But if the goal is to go on a date with the cute girl, well, that's not completely up to you, is it? No, because there's another human being involved. You can certainly ask, and so you're trying, you're attempting, you're putting forth an effort, but the success or failure of that thing is not completely up to you. So on some things, there is a try. It's not a do or do not. There is no try. You have to try at some things, especially things that involve other people, especially business. Business is something to where there's a lot of try in business. And I know, again, people are going to say, do or do not, there is no try. But no, there is a lot of try. there is a lot of try, because you can create a product that you think everybody in the world is going to benefit from. And unless people actually wind up seeing that what you have created is going to benefit them, then all you're really doing is trying to benefit the world. And of course, you're trying to make some money as well. But again, your success or failure is dependent upon other people. And when I say success in this situation, I mean whether or not you wind up achieving the goal. If the goal is to make money, then your success at reaching that goal is wholly dependent on other people. Again, it could be the most incredible product ever, but unless you have the money to advertise, unless you have the marketing skills to advertise whatever it is you have created, then people aren't going to find your product. People aren't going to see the benefits of your product. So there is a lot of try. And that's how I define success, is always trying your best, trying to give the utmost effort to wind up reaching your goal. And whether you succeed or not at reaching your goal is irrelevant as long as you put forth the utmost effort. And when I say that, I realize it makes me sound like one of these people that says, we should just give every child a trophy. And that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm not saying that you should be rewarded for trying. I am not saying that at all. I'm not saying that, showing up is 90% of success, although in a lot of ways it kind of is. But you should not be given a trophy just for showing up. Again, showing up, yes, you're never going to succeed if you don't show up. But you should not be rewarded simply for showing up. You should be, and I'm not even going to say you should be rewarded for trying, other than it should be emotionally rewarding knowing that you put forth your best effort. Knowing that you have attempted to do something that you did not think that you could do. Or maybe you're attempting to do something that you really thought you could do, but you came up short. As long as you put forth your utmost effort, that's what I would consider to be success, and that's what I would consider to be greatness, is always doing your best no matter what it is. And that brings me to the 3 truths. So I'm going to imagine that today is my final day here on Earth, and I'm surrounded by loved ones, and everything that I've ever created, this podcast included, has been wiped off the face of the earth. And every book I've ever written, every podcast I've ever recorded, every interview I've ever done, every video I've ever made has all been wiped off the face of the earth. I don't know, maybe there was an EMP attack. I really don't know, but that doesn't explain why all the books are destroyed. But nonetheless, it's my final day. Everything I've ever created has been destroyed, with the exception of something that I am about to write down on a piece of paper. And that is 3 things that I know to be true about life. And I've actually written these down, not handwritten, which I need to wind up doing, but I have written them down, and I will tell them to you in just a moment here on Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. In 1999, Darryl W. Perry began a search for traditional values, which led him down a path to the ideas of liberty. He tells the story in A Rebel's Journey, My Path to Liberty. Of the book, Dr. Brian Sovereign says, sometimes it's funny, and sometimes I think it's crazy, but it's always authentic. Find A Rebel's Journey, My Path to Liberty by Darryl W. Perry on Facebook, read reviews on Amazon, ask for A Rebel's Journey wherever books are sold, or visit arebelsjourney.com. You can support FPP Radio by joining the Fans program. Fans are friends, allies, and numerous supporters. Fans help FPP afford to produce more original content. You can join the Fans program for as little as $3 per month through Patreon and get perks like ad-free versions of FPP Radio News and Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. To learn more or to join the Fans program, visit fans.fppradio.com. That's fans.fppradio.com. PLL.com. In 2115 New England, there are no borders, no states, and no regulations, yet never has a more peaceful and prosperous place existed. But Mr. Drake's security company has seen better days. Faced with the prospect of waning power, Mr. Drake intends to replace the anarchy of New England with a government. But at what cost? And can anyone stop him? Anarchy in New England by Joe Jarvis is available from Amazon.com and all major bookstores.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry.
So before I give you my 3 truths that I know to be true about life, I want to make sure that I tell you about one other thing that I know to be true, and that is that Roberts & Roberts Brokerage has been a trusted source for buying and selling precious metals like gold and silver for nearly 40 years. And Roberts & Roberts Brokerage takes Bitcoin for precious metal purchases, and they've even permanently removed the minimum purchase amount for all orders paid in the digital currency. Call Roberts & Roberts today for knowledgeable advice on buying and selling precious metals and a forward-thinking approach to new technologies. 800-874-9760. That's 800-874-9760. Or you can visit them online at rrbi.co. That's rrbi.co. So what are 3 things that I, Darryl W. Perry, know to be true about life? And I'm going to give you these 3 things, and then I will explain how I came to come up with these 3 things. And one thing that you will notice about each of these is they are positive statements. Statements in the affirmative. Statements of affirmation, if you will. So the 3 things that I, Darryl W. Perry, know to be true about life. Be willing to compromise on what you want, not what you believe. Always have goals and be willing to leave your comfort zone to achieve them. Be open to love. Now, again, you will notice that all 3 of these are positive statements. They're statements in the affirmative. And when I started thinking about what are 3 things that I know to be true about life, at first I started thinking of you should never fill in the blank. You should never compromise what you believe. And then I thought, wait a second. No, they should be positive statements. It should be willing to compromise on what you want, but not what you believe. And what do I mean by that? Be willing to compromise on what you want. Well, as you know, I am involved politically in a lot of ways. I go to the State House on a regular basis here in New Hampshire, and basically I act as a citizen lobbyist on behalf of people that want more freedom. And there are times when legislation will come forward that I find to be a half measure that I would be willing to accept in the interim. So, for instance, there was legislation not too long ago that would tax and regulate cannabis. There was another bill that would have decriminalized possession of up to 1 ounce of cannabis. And while I would love to see the entire drug war gone away, I would love to see no one go to jail for possession of any substance. I would love to see people go to jail, or rather, I would love to see no people go to jail for selling something without a government license. So, for instance, right now it's illegal in most of the country to wind up selling cannabis to anyone unless, in Colorado and Alaska and Oregon and Washington State, that is, you can sell cannabis if you have a permit to do so and you've got a business license and all these other hoops and hurdles. But if you're just some guy and you sell somebody some cannabis, that is illegal. And I don't think anybody should go to jail for that. If you sell somebody some methamphetamines, unless you're a licensed pharmacist and they have a prescription, that's illegal and you will go to jail. I don't think anybody should go to jail for consensual commerce. And that includes commerce of the intimate kind, where sexual favors are being bought and sold. I don't think that should be illegal. And so on those instances, I will always advocate for maximum human freedom. However, I would compromise on what I would accept. So if the option is either people continue going to jail for fill in the blank, or we will not send people to jail if they do fill in the blank and it's below a certain amount. I would accept that as an interim measure, but I would still wind up advocating for maximum human freedom. And there are other things that, obviously, politics is only one aspect of life. Something else that I would be willing to compromise on would be, I really can't think of something. I'm sure that there is something else that I would be willing to compromise on. I just can't think of a good example off the top of my head. But let me go now to the second thing on what I know to be true. Always have goals and be willing to leave your comfort zone to achieve them. When I started writing these 3 truths, I started to wind up writing never stay in your comfort zone. But again, that's a negative statement to where you're telling somebody what not to do. If you're talking about things that you know to be true or advice to give, you should always give positive advice, positive affirmations, not negative. So always have goals. That's a good bit of advice, because if you don't have goals, then you're just, going through the motions of life of, it's time to wake up and go do the thing and then eat some food and then come back home and do the thing again and maybe drink a beer and watch TV. And I don't know what I'm doing with life. I'm just going through the motions. But you should always have goals. And you should always be willing to leave your comfort zone to achieve your goals. Because if you just have a goal, but you never leave your comfort zone to attempt to achieve that goal, then it's not a goal, it's a dream. It's more of a pipe dream, if you will. And there's a quote that I've seen on Facebook and other places several times, and I actually just pulled this up, and it says, a dream written down with a date becomes a goal. A goal broken down into steps becomes a plan. A plan backed by action makes your dreams come true. The quote is attributed to someone named Greg S. Reed, and there's a link on this image that says thesilverpen.com. That's the silver pen, spelled PEN.com. So I'm not sure, exactly what he is trying to sell there at that website, but I love the quote because that's really important for life. Again, let me read this for you one more time. A dream written down with a date becomes a goal. A goal broken down into steps becomes a plan. A plan backed by action makes your dreams come true. And how does that fit in with the statement that I know to be true? One of my 3 truths. Always have goals and be willing to leave your comfort zone to achieve them. So if you just have a goal, then, if you have a dream, then it's not really a goal, is it? If you have a dream but no date or time that you plan to achieve it, it's just a dream. So you have to have goals. You have to have dreams as well, but you also have to have goals. And then you have to have a plan to fulfill that goal, and then you have to do. And it's the doing that requires you to leave your comfort zone, because you're never going to do if you stay in your comfort zone. Because comfort zones are just that. They're comfortable. And you never do anything when you're comfortable.
During the 2013 Porcupine Freedom Festival, Davi Barker presented an idea for a renegade psychological experiment. Since then, he has refined his idea and put his plan and research into writing. He explains, "We aim to show the world beyond a shadow of a doubt that power corrupts absolutely and corrupt authority deserves no obedience. Authoritarian Sociopathy is available from Amazon.com and all major bookstores. Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at weusecoins.com. That's weusecoins.com.
It is the year 91,001 BCE. Witness humanity's origins in Hyperchronius, a classic role-playing game for Windows PCs, with a story like no other game before. A liberty-oriented experience that is not to be missed. Go to zog.ninja to get your copy of Hyperchronius today. Use the code FPP to get $1 off. Hyperchronius, zog.ninja, code FPP.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com.
Speaking of never doing anything when you're comfortable, most people that are listening to this podcast are probably fed up with the government ruining every aspect of your life, meaning there is no real comfort. What's that? You're not listening to the Lava Flow podcast yet? What is wrong with you? Go right now. Leave the comfort zone that you're in and go right now to thelavaflow.com/listen. The Lava Flow podcast, channeling the flow of information to the libertarian, anarcho-capitalist, voluntarist, and agorist community. Subscribe today using any podcatcher at thelavaflow.com/listen. Or just go back to sucking up to the government. The Lava Flow podcast, striking the root every episode. So, I'm going over my 3 truths, the 3 things that I know to be true about life, and explaining how I came to, basically came to write down these 3. Why did I choose these 3 things to be statements that I know to be true about life? And the first, again, be willing to compromise on what you want, not what you believe. Always have goals and be willing to leave your comfort zone to achieve them. And the third thing that I've written down as a truth that I know to be true about life, be open to love. And all 3 of these, in a lot of ways, are sort of connected to me, and they go back to my definition of greatness. And the first question, what are you grateful for? I actually answered last week, but I'll just rehash and say that I'm grateful for my health, because I'm very proud of myself, having over the last almost year lost 140 plus pounds, and I've gotten back into shape. I'm probably in almost as good of shape right now as I was when I was playing football in high school 20 plus years ago. And, yes, I still have some knee pain, I still have back pain, but I'm in wonderful, I would say that I'm in wonderful health right now. And so that's one of the things that I'm grateful for. And then to answer what is my definition of greatness, I would say my definition of greatness is to be successful. And then I further answered my definition of success is always trying your best at whatever it is that you put your mind to, and always trying to achieve your goals. And now, what are my 3 truths, 3 things that I know to be true about life? Again, be willing to compromise on what you want, but not what you believe. Always have goals and be willing to leave your comfort zone to achieve them, and be open to love. Now, I have not really talked a lot about sort of my personal relationship sort of stuff. I've sort of, hinted at, and if you're one of my friends on Facebook, you know that I'll post every now and then about, my lack of a love life. And part of that is because I slightly over a decade ago got divorced, was in basically a really horrible relationship, but, because I made a vow. I got married. I made a vow to love, honor, and cherish this woman till death do us part. And so, like I did everything that I could to make the marriage work. And one day she said, yeah, I don't love you anymore. I don't want to be married anymore. And so I want a divorce. And she also said, you're too good to me and blah, blah, blah. You deserve better, this, that, the other thing. And there was a child involved, and I wound up for a couple of years fighting to be able to have, visitation and custody rights of my son. And I was able to get what they called partial custody, meaning that I was able to see my son for a grand total of 9 hours per month. 9 hours per month. And I was devastated in a lot of ways. This woman that I loved, or at least that I thought I loved, wound up, basically hurting me in the worst way possible of essentially taking my son from me. And then there were things that happened where I basically went through about a year of court trying to fight against some false allegations that were ultimately proven to be false. But before the court determined that they were false, I had lost all custody, lost all parental rights. And again, that was very devastating. And while I was going through all of this, I basically shut myself off from trying to date, shut myself off from trying to, find love, if you will. I did not date for a couple of years intentionally because I knew that, I would not be able to devote the time or energy to another human being other than my son and myself and work. And so then a couple of years later, basically about, I would say probably a year after the whole ordeal with the court battles and whatnot, I decided, all right, you know what, I want to try dating again. And it's been incredibly difficult. And I think partly because I did shut myself off to even the possibility of finding love for a couple of years. And now here I am 11 years after getting divorced. And, it's incredibly difficult trying to date, partly because I would say that I'm probably a little jaded. Because, there's been a lot of rejection, and I tried using, OkCupid and online dating sites with very little success. And I was talking to somebody recently, and they said, Darryl, you lost a lot of weight. You should get a haircut because women like guys with short hair. Don't you think that women like guys with short hair? Didn't you find that when you had shorter hair, you had better success dating? And my response was, in my experience, it has made absolutely zero difference whether I've had long hair, short hair, whether I've, been large or not so large. And I'm still, not exactly a thin guy. Everybody compliment, oh, wow, Darryl, you look so thin. And yes, compared to when I weighed over 300 pounds, I am pretty thin. But I'm still not what I would consider to be a small guy. But again, in my experience, even going back to high school, it's made absolutely no difference what I've, how I've looked, how my hair has been done. I still am not having any success at dating. And again, part of that I think might be because I did sort of shut myself off from even the possibility of love for a couple of years. So that's something that's very important. That if I could, wind up giving myself this advice 20 years ago when I was in high school, these are the three things that I would have wound up telling myself. It's three things that I would encourage everybody to basically think on and, do, basically. Or at least try to do. Because, again, it's not always a do or do not. There is no try. A lot of times, try has a lot to do with other people. So, Apologies on not getting to the final question. I will answer it next week, but don't forget there's no episode this Friday because I'll be at the Liberty Forum. I'll be back Monday, FPPRadio.com.